Hey, how's it going? Ryan here, Triathlon.com. We're here with another video. Time of this recording, it is Super Bowl Monday. The Chiefs have won their second Super Bowl in 4 years, so I am dressed up for the occasion. But I digress because you guys are here for triathlon tips, not here to talk about the Super Bowl. So I'll talk about Super Bowl later when we go to the parade on Wednesday here in Kansas City. Let's get on with the topic at hand. See in the background, we're going to talk about the importance of being in aero position. A lot of people ask, is it that important? We're going to go through a few thoughts and ideas of why it's important and why you should probably pay attention to it to some extent, just depending on your circumstances. So let's jump right into it. Number one, two greatest obstacles are air and gravity. If you're on a flat road, gravity is not as much of a problem, but air resistance, as you go faster, air resistance becomes more and more impactful, and the ways you reduce that air resistance becomes more important as well. So pay attention to that, because that's like 90% of what you're doing is overcoming the air resistance when you're on your bike, especially as you start getting faster. Number two, at 10 miles per hour, 50% of the effort goes to overcome wind resistance. Number three, at 40 miles per hour, it jumps to 90%. So as you can see, there's a sliding scale to it. Most of us are going 40 miles per hour on a bike, but once you get up to 20 miles an hour, it's like 75, 80% of what the effort you're putting out is overcoming that wind resistance. So the more you can do to lessen that impact of the aerodynamics of the wind resisting you moving forward, the better you're going to be at A, saving energy over the long run, and B, hopefully being a little bit faster. Number four, 70 to 80% of the frontal area of the bike plus the rider. So if you look at me, I've got a little bit wider shoulders, and unfortunately, when I'm riding into a headwind or any wind in general, or just riding my bike, it kind of creates a huge sail type of situation, because no matter how I do it, my shoulders get a little bit sore if my shoulder pads are in too much. So the wider the shoulders you are, unfortunately, puts you a little bit of a disadvantage of avoiding that wind resistance. But there are things you could do. You can see here in the picture, this is a bit extreme of a time trial position to be on to reduce the impact of having broad shoulders and catching the wind with your upper body as a sail. And then there's things you could do with different clothing, different things to reduce the body circumference of yourself. And obviously, there's money you can pour into a bike to get that frame as wind resistant, as small in the direction of your riding as possible. So there's different things you can do in your setup on the front of the bike. If you got aero bottles, if you got a bike computer, all these different things, that will all impact the front area that hits the wind as you're riding along. So keep that in mind. Number five, studies have shown classic upright riding position with hands on hoods on a regular road bike is the highest drag position. So if you're out there, probably the most comfortable position on a road bike on the hoods, riding along, that is the worst position you could be in to reduce the wind drag as you're riding through the air. So in order to do that, if you're on a road bike, is to drop down in the drops and get you a little bit more of an aerodynamic position. Then we move on to the time trial bike, which you get the more aerodynamic position with that. As long as your body can tolerate, as I said, there's some things you may or may not be able to do. Maybe time trial bike's not in the cards, or maybe you're looking into it and like, well, what are the benefits? So studies have shown that being up on a road bike on the hoods is the worst position, and TT position will reduce some oxygen taking efficiency. So that's number six. I thought that was going to be something else. I jumped ahead a little bit. But if you're going into the time trial bike, triathlon bike, and you're getting that aero position, that is the most optimal position. That's why they make the bikes, is to get you in the most optimal position to reduce the wind drag as you're riding through. Number six, the TT position will reduce some oxygen intake and efficiency. So if you look at this guy, his legs are kind of compressed up into his rib cage a little bit. So as you're bent over more at the hips, it's more and more difficult to take in deep breaths and really get a full, rich, lungs full of oxygen to distribute that to your body. So there's a little bit of give and take. The more aerodynamic you're going to be, the more aggressive in your position. You're going to fight a little bit in getting that air into your lungs and being able to get that oxygen through your body. So just keep that in mind. So that might be a little bit of a trade-off. Number seven, saving from less drag more than makes up for oxygen losses. So if you consider that you're losing a little bit of oxygen and you're maybe not as able to operate as optimal on the bike because you're not getting that oxygen, what you're losing from that is made up, more than made up, for being an aerodynamic position on a TT bike, as long as you're comfortable, as long as your body can deal with it and that type of thing. So keep that in mind. There's going to be some gives and takes on there, and just keep in mind that being in the most optimal aero position will probably outweigh the detractions as far as being in that position. Number 8, you don't have to use a triathlon style bike. Like I said, you can use a road bike. You can be on the drops, or you can put on a set of Aero clip-on bars. And I've done several posts on that topic as well, finding the right ones for you. So that may be something you could do to minimize the impact of being in a time trial bike, because it is aggressive. It is different. If you're not used to it, it does take time to get used to being in that position. And sometimes, if you're not flexible, you're going to have to introduce some flexibility into your training to get that ability to be in a different type of position, especially to start applying power, all that kind of good stuff that comes with that. So, the broad question of, do I want to look at a time trial bike? Is being aerodynamic more important? If a sprint race, a sprint triathlon, probably not as important. But if you're doing a 70.3, a full Ironman distance race, you're definitely going to want the benefits of being in a time trial position, especially if you're out there on the bike for 2, 3, 6, 8 hours out there on the bike, fighting headwind or anything like that, crosswinds. The more aerodynamic you can be, the more energy you're going to save, the more you're going to have to do that run, because once you get off the bike, usually triathlon includes a run, so you're going to want a little energy to get through to the finish line. So that wraps it up. I know I talked kind of quick. This kind of helped you out. Like on Facebook, like on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, notification button to get future tips and triathlon information. And I also do videos on race courses and specific race courses like Des Moines, Tulsa, Chattanooga, and all that kind of stuff. So you can get notifications for those when I put videos out for that. If you have any questions, put them in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. I get notifications of those, and I'll come back and try to answer any questions you got. Like I said, I know I rolled through kind of quick and hit it at a very high level, but I want to make these videos a little bit quick. We'll get the tips out there, get some information, just make you think a little bit. If you're looking into maybe I want to do an aero bike, maybe I want to do clip-on bars, something like that, is it really worth my time? I think it is. So with that, I'll wrap up this video and we'll see you in the next one.